Welcome to the OverChurched podcast for people who love Christ but are struggling with Christians. I'm Delicia. We are so thankful to have you guys on. This is my lovely husband in green today, Justin.
Legacy Church.
If you guys are hanging out and still listening, thank you for being with us on season 2, and just thank you for being with us. Sometimes when we're doing these things, like, honestly, they're just real conversations. It's not like a whole format or anything like that. We just really wanted to start a podcast that can help people who feel overchurched to feel ignited or heard or encouraged or even empowered to once again start going back to church and understanding the importance of the bride. So with all that being said, is that we wanted to start this off with calling it, you sing it so much better, babe.
When you sing it?
You sing it so much better. I know you want to sing it. What's the title of today's?
Today's title is Confessions of a Lead Pastor.
Oh, I thought you were going to sing it.
These are my confessions.
I knew it.
My church on the side said I got.
That's heck of funny. I think you should write a whole bunch of lyrics. But period, we want to talk about confessions of us. After 1 year of
We just hit a year
of celebrating legacy and leading Legacy Church. Confessions, and maybe what really spawned this whole thought process was that it's just the fact that maybe you might never hear or get the opportunity to hear from the lead pastor of their process or a leader in the church. Sometimes it's not even the senior leader. Like sometimes the leaders don't even know what other leaders are representing them or how they're representing them, which is unfortunate. And you don't ever get the opportunity. But we wanted to share this because we hope that we can share our faults and the things that we regret and the things that we wish we could have done better or handled better. And then hopefully that is an encouragement to you hearing it.
I agree.
Yeah.
So let's start from the beginning. If I could go back.
If you can go back.
So we started the church officially January 15th.
Yeah.
2023. But going into it, it was quick. It was a 5-month process.
Yeah.
And so there was so much of us trying to learn a lot before we got there and what was going to happen. I mean, it was a lot of just trying to figure out things quickly because we had a hard start date.
Yeah. I would say that if you're a part of a church plant or you get to be a part of any church, I think that the biggest thing to remember is that a lot of us are scared doing it. I think that that's the biggest thing, that maybe sometimes we know ourselves, but we don't really say out loud, you know? And I think that that's for any person really starting a business or starting something new in their life. I would say is that we talked about this and when we first wanted to start a podcast, and I remember we've been wanting to start a podcast forever. And
you've been wanting to start a podcast.
I have,
forever.
But you were on board. You were very on board about it, but I would have to figure it all out and stuff. But I didn't realize how much of a perfectionist you were. And also you wanted
to just cough in our middle of our, I was going all the
I was like, if you didn't catch the last episode, I was coughing like crazy.
I hope it gets edited out.
Oh no, it can't. It's so much happening.
We probably all have COVID by the time of this recording.
Anyways, but my point is that I just want you guys to know, listening, is that the biggest thing is that as a leader, we're all scared. We're all fearful of starting something new. It doesn't,
and it not being perfect or not being as good as what we want it to be.
And I just think that you need to remember that when you're dealing with people and when you're with a team. My fault is that I regret like just not saying that sometimes, of like, I think even the closest people to us even felt like we kind of had it all planned, or like, dang, like they're going, they're moving, they're not like nervous, they're not scared or showing that or whatever. But that wasn't the case. I just never said it. I was terrified inside, like starting a church and being responsible for people and
especially the church, the type of church we were promising to start, one for the
Right.
unchurched, de-churched, and overchurched.
Yeah.
I think we were
That-
scared of what happens if we end up repeating something that is just like what other people have already experienced.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's a good point. It was really about the demographic that we wanted. We felt like God was asking us to be intentional about and how to be intentional about that. So
I was scared. The thing I was scared of before we started, like, it's just funny. I just had lunch with somebody yesterday, and he said, he started coming a couple months ago, and him and his wife drive all the way, an hour away. It doesn't matter. I don't know where people live when they listen to this, but anyway, they live in the West Valley. And he said, the thing that won me immediately when we walked in was just the diversity, the cultural diversity. He's like, this is what I've been missing my whole life. He's Black, his wife is white. And he was like, I've never just felt like this was a space for just both of us, you know?
yeah.
And he said, did you know that it would be like this when you started the church? And I was like, no, like this is what I wanted. But I was like, I was scared that if we did it in Chandler, we wouldn't have gotten that. I was scared that the church I envisioned wouldn't work or happen in Chandler at first, where his legacy is located.
Yeah.
Because there were other pastors that told me that it wouldn't happen. They literally said that the diversity, you know, we don't see color. We don't believe in that and all that crap. And they were like, and so what you're looking for, like, you need to do that somewhere else. So fear was kind of sewn into me of the dream I feel like God gave us might not be possible where God is telling us to plant it.
Yeah.
So, you know, those were one of the fears I had. And I will say part of that fear, like as we're confessing things, it had me, I remember my fear was we would be too Black for white people and too white for
the Black,
for minority, Black, brown, whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this so many times, like,
and it's interesting because what I found is, you know, in our limited, you know, I hate making broad statements because we haven't been to every church in Arizona.
No. We tried.
I tried.
You tried.
I tried.
No, I'll give you all the credit. Yeah.
Anyway.
I watched you guys from my couch.
But what I say is it's the most diversity I've seen in a church.
Yeah.
In the Valley. But as a confession, the thing that pisses me off is that people from the outside will still say, oh, that's the Black church or that's the brown church. And I'm like, well, we don't refer to your church as the white church.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But the moment there's a majority of anything, all of a sudden, the outside of the norm.
Right.
You know, so my confession is I feel like I've been afraid of, I've literally had this thought is, oh crap, are the things we're doing too Black?
Yeah.
You know? And there's this tension of like, is our worship style too gospel heavy this Sunday to where white people aren't comfortable or Asians aren't comfortable? You know what I mean? Or are there, you know what I mean? And I found myself starting to operate out of fear instead of, or not operate, but to have those thoughts that were, you know, that were sown.
Yeah. I remember you struggling with this because I remember that's once again, like one of the things that I'm like learning is like the things that you have to say and that, you know, but you're not saying them or whatever. And that's just as leaders. Like I just think that that's just a key for all leaders, and in your marriage too. I would just say like, also just your relationships, when you're leading people, it's like, there's a lot that you think, but you don't really say.
Yeah.
And you think you're saying it, but you're not. You're just talking to yourself a lot of the time.
Or you try to say things around it, which make it more confusing. Yeah.
But you're not saying it. And then it's like the fact of you think because your actions, and that was me, is like my actions. Well, I'm here, I'm doing it. But then it's like, it has to be said. Yeah. And I just feel like that's where God is really like challenging me right now in this year. But back to that is that my point is that I remember in this moment that I could see that you were struggling with this. Like you were so like, and I could tell like you didn't even want to say it out loud, but we kept hearing remarks. We kept hearing these things and it was becoming obstacles. And then I had to like tell you like, hey, I don't care if it's what they think is a black church or a white church or whatever church that they think, like, we just need to do the church that God has asked us to be. And that's it. Like, and you have to be able to be proudly to be the black pastor that God has created you to be, because that is who you are. Like, no matter what, that is who you are. So how people label that, like, that's on them, not you. That's not how God has labeled you and capped you. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like, for us to think as human beings, when yet his thoughts are higher than our thoughts and his ways are higher than our ways, why would we ever think that God would be limited by our racial preferences or labeled in that way? Like, and we've had leaders tell us this, like you said, like, oh, you won't be able to minister to a certain type of demographic and things, like, literally coming out of their mouth. And it's just
Pastor told me Asians wouldn't like our church because we're too charismatic, and they culturally, they're more quiet and reserved. And then I think about all the Asians at our church.
Yeah. And it's just like fascinating to me of how we can really
put people in a box
in that way. And it's just like, what? Are you guys serious right now? Like, but these are the confessions that we're saying, because we hope that even though you maybe made those remarks or have heard those remarks or had those thoughts or whatever the case might be, is that we hope that you understand that pastors do think of these things. Like, and when sometimes you're like, they don't think about this and they don't think about that, they probably have. They're just not going to admit them to you. Just didn't get to hear them, or they didn't admit it to you. But it's because it's in a vulnerable place that we are literally wrestling with God and what people are saying. And that's the part is, like, I see our church, so I know what it looks like, right? You know, every Sunday, I know the type of people we do life with, but I found myself at one point trying to prove to others what I already knew. Like, no, that's what messed it. Cause I remember we had a couple in our church that were, you know, I think white and Hispanic, and they went to an event with some other people who knew about Legacy. And they were like, oh, you go to the black church? Justin and Delicia, they got tired of white church. So they wanted a church for black people, and you guys go to that church. And they were thrown off because they didn't see their church that way. They're like, he was so upset.
They were traumatized. Like, they were like, what? And not that they're like against black, like, no. Like they just but the
never
fact of,
saw
like, they never saw it like that.
Way.
They're like, no, I'm here. Here, so there's brown people. My wife's here, so there's white people. You know what I mean? And we always see ourselves with the community. But so that stuff like that of like, I'm like, I felt like I was like fighting for our people of like, don't project that onto them, you know? But I also learned even internally, you know, it's sometimes not even outside. It's sometimes the inside of, because it's so different from what other people have seen. Like, unapologetically, like, I would say like 60% of our church is black. 100%. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I'm grateful for that. But if you were to go to a church that was 60% anything else, they wouldn't want to be labeled. They wouldn't have said, they'd be like, oh no, we're so multicultural, so multiracial.
They're like,
and honestly, there's not really many things that are 60%. It's usually 80%, if not 90% one ethnicity. You know, and then they got, you know, if it's all black church, they got that one cool white girl who grew up with black girls. So she you know what I mean?
So she got swag.
So yeah. You got like this swaggy white girl who she thinks she probably says the N-word when she raps in her car, you know. She probably,
I hope to God not.
I'm just saying, I got some Ashleys that their middle name is Juanita, you know.
Juanita.
But
that's funny.
But I'm saying, I just think it's sad. It's not sad, but it is sad. But it's also sad because that's go ahead.
Yeah, because if you're in Arizona and that's where we are at, predominantly Arizona is white. Like, that's just what it is, right? But there is nobody who describes churches of just like, oh, I went to so-and-so church. Like, they describe it as whatever the name is in the title.
And it's church.
And it's church.
They don't say, oh yeah, I go to a white church.
Yeah.
I'm the token whatever person.
Like,
or even the white people, they're like, oh yeah, we go to a white church and we're grateful for our whatever friends. Like, nobody thinks like that until they come to something that's different. And then all of a sudden it's a
It's labeled in that way.
And so that was what was eating at me. But I feel like, you know, I don't know if I'm 100% recovered from, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it doesn't still get at me sometimes, but it's something I'm aware of. And I'm kind of like, no, we're in our perspective. And from the people that are part of it, we're a multicultural, multi-generational church. We're just church. We look like heaven.
We're just a church that looks
like what maybe more churches should look like.
Yeah. And nobody's being hired as a token minority or a token worship person.
Yeah. And we're a diverse church. On stage. We're diverse, not because just what we look like, but because what we sound like. Yeah. We can do Bethel, the same set that we do Kirk Franklin.
That's what I wanted to talk about. Confessions of the OverChurched and just like the mistakes and things like that. We've never made this mistake, but it made me so aware. Now that we lead a church, we have heard of this whole pastors or leaders who will literally make, so you think that this was maybe a thought, a theory, or if anybody's been through this personally, like there is those minority hires.
Oh, for sure.
And that is not even, and it's always justified as, well, they want to see people like them on stage, but that's the only person. That's literally the only person. And there's no intentionality to really what that culture of that demographic.
It's like using a person to get more people like them.
Yeah. And it's like, I heard that and I didn't want to believe it, but then it's like, what the heck? So for me, the confession is like, for anybody who's ever been a part of that or has maybe experienced that, one is like, you just like, honestly, like if that's where you feel like God's called you to and you to being that so-called bridge or whatever the case might be in that realm, go ahead, do that. But I also think that the people who have ever questioned it, like, I wonder why do you think there's only one black dude on the staff and the rest are 50%, like 90% white? And like, but what does that say to you? Why is it that there's no music that represents gospel or or
Hispanic? We sing songs in Spanish a lot.
Spanish. Or why don't you intentionally do that when you have Spanish speaking people at your church, but you make them adapt to a white or like basically white music? Like, why is that's the standard instead of you meeting where people where they're at? Like meeting people where they're at and who we are called to doing that. Like that is understanding who they are, understanding where they came from and having that intentionality. Diversity is not just the token person that you hire of the skin color, but where they come from, the music they listen to, how they dress. All those things are incorporated to culture and what diversity is. So like I loved at our first birthday, that we just celebrated. That
we didn't even plan.
No, we didn't plan. I was just about to say that. Is that some of the team members were like, oh my gosh, we got a Southern food truck and a Puerto Rican truck. They assumed that was our idea. And then like we didn't even know until the week of. And it was amazing to see how many people love that, to the point where the food truck dude wants to come back to church and just of the encounter of people.
He never even came in.
He never
loved the church just from the parking lot.
And all the people he saw and got to talk to.
Yeah.
And he was like, this is amazing. I haven't seen this here. I haven't been a part of this. Like it just changed his whole perspective. And he like he was the unchurched. Yeah. He was the overchurched, and he just had that encounter with God just in the parking lot. But my point is like, if I think back to how long I've been in Arizona and how long I've been working for churches, I'm like, I have not seen a Puerto Rican truck at no dang church event, or let alone a Southern food truck. Like it's either burger and fries, hot dogs, or you name it, anything Americanized that's quick and easy, which I get. But it's like at the same time, you're not meeting people in that way. Yeah. Like, so we are thinking about all those things. And it's a lot of stuff that we always have to think about. Like there's a lot. So I would just say to the person listening is like that if you feel that you want to be a diverse church, truly,
or be a part of one,
ask yourself what that means and what that actually looks like. What does diversity actually mean to you?
Yeah. I think a couple of things. One, I think it's a tension, and I empathize with like our Anglo brothers and sisters who like, they do want diversity, but they don't know how to get it.
Yeah.
And I think that the first thing that matters is what's your motive for it?
Yeah. What's your motive?
Is your motive to be diverse just so that you can get more butts and seats? Or is it so that you can actually change a culture of like oneness and sameness and actually broaden that out? Because if that's the culture, then you'll be in it for the long game, not just you can't hire diversity,
right,
to change a culture. Does that make sense? I think it starts with what's your friend group like, right?
Your personal friend group.
Personal friend group. And I want to have this conversation later. Like I want to dedicate an episode to this, but just to get because it's on my mind right now. I think legacy is just a reflection of our friend group. I was talking to a pastor about this like yesterday. I was like, legacy is just our immediate friends times hundreds. That's it.
100%.
But most pastors who don't have multicultural churches don't have multicultural friend groups.
That's so good.
So the church is an actual reflection of them, right?
Yeah.
So I think through the lens of, do we have enough? We should do more songs in Spanish because I want,
Laura or
Laura
Melanie
to be able to vibe to this, or Melanie, you know what I mean?
like Spanish speaking.
Yeah, I want them to be
friends,
able to,
I want them to be connected in that way.
So I do that from the whole, me and Donnie worked on the whole scape. You know what I mean? Like, what is a Casey listen to? Casey probably likes her little Elevation with, you know what I mean? Like we got to throw some. So anyway, that's because that's, our community.
But we're thinking about firsthand people that you actually have relationships with.
Yeah, you have to have relationships with, and then it'll organically bleed out of that.
Yeah.
But the second thing I think about is you have to be in it for the long game. I think one church, the one thing that made us feel safe when we first got to Arizona was, even though the majority of like when we went to Target or Walmart's was different. Yeah. When we went to church, it was not.
Yeah.
I will shout out Impact Church. I will say that is an example of authenticity, of an I can't word words. Authentic commitment to diversity.
Oh yeah.
It's in the middle of Scottsdale, Arizona, which is, for context, not like the epitome of diversity.
Yeah, no.
A very affluent, very wealthy community. But the first Sunday we were there, it was like they did almost all gospel. Put it like this. I was on staff in Impact, and I would literally have conversations with our worship, like, bro, when we going to do Hillsong? Like, all we do is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was authentic to what Pastor Travis wanted it to be, and that it reflected he grew up hooping and coaching. And so anyway, he spent years and years of implementing something that wasn't even always reflected every single Sunday. Yeah. And it forced people to get outside of what they would have assumed or what they were used to it from the other churches around the corner. And now it's, one of the most diverse churches in the state, if not the country, because he spent years and years of, hey, from day one, we're going to sing gospel style music. We're going to have.
But it was who he was.
But it's exactly, it was authentic to who he was.
It was, if you got to see his personal family and his
family,
circle,
his
represented.
Group, his friend group, it represented who he was.
I think that's the bigger point, is just knowing that you have to look at your leaders or yourself, whether you are, whatever your walk of life title, whatever that is, who's listening, is if your friend group personally, the people that you do life with are not diverse, then you do not care about diversity. Like, that's just it.
Yeah.
And so,
and then you'll use language of like, well, it doesn't need to be forced, or that's just you'll use language to dismiss it.
Justify it.
When the reality is, you don't really care.
No, because you would make an effort, and it's not that you're making an effort. If you feel like you're making an effort to the fact that just so I could say I can have color friends or minority friends, it's like you're missing the whole point.
But it'll show over time.
Yeah,
it'll show over time. But I guess that's our confession: is we were shocked by how rare in diversity is. We were also shocked by how it gets used as a marketing tool more than an actual like, this is who I care about. I want
Genuineness of it.
the genuineness of it. We were shocked about that. Okay. Going back to things we have done wrong though. I confess that I didn't realize how hard it would be to intentionally care for people. Not care for people. I shouldn't say it like that. I'll start off. Let me back up.
We could elaborate on that because I know what you're saying.
When we started the church, I was like, I had made a personal commitment that I wanted to call every single first time guest. Anybody that visited Legacy, I wanted them to get a phone call from me on Monday because I wanted them to know that this church is relational. This pastor sees them like they're not just a number. And I wanted them to get a personal touch. You know, I was like, I know other churches, I've never been a part of a church where the pastor called every single first time guest. And I was like, I want to do things different. And I did.
You did.
For the first couple months.
I mean, you did it longer than that.
Well, yeah, but I'll say this. Once Easter came and 1,200 people showed up. Yeah. And what happened is Easter came, there was 1,200 people that came to the church. Before that, there would be like 250, maybe 300. There'd be like 300 people most. And then all of a sudden over 1,000 and something people show up.
Right.
And then the very next day we went on a trip to just like decompress from the craziness of life. And then I came back and then it was right back to church on Sunday. And then next time I looked in the queue to make phone calls, there was hundreds of people to call and I was overwhelmed. And then I just started falling behind. And then I got to the point where I was like, oh my gosh. And I felt this guilt of, you know, you're not intentional. You're not relational. You said you were going to do this. I even think, and I felt more guilty because I think we had created a workflow process to where if someone came, they got a text message or call saying a pastor is going to reach out to you. So then I'm like, now we're just lying to people. We're giving them false. So I confess that I dealt, and honestly, I still deal with a degree of like pastoral guilt because I put this, I don't know if it was unrealistic or not. I don't know. I just know I didn't sustain it.
I'll tell you it was unrealistic, but I also think that comes from a place of me we're different in the sense of the people pleasing and that guilt. And you teach me to going the extra mile with people and stuff like that. But I also am very aware of like how much I have the bandwidth when we have a family, for myself with 3 kids, you like us, like there's so many things. And I think that anybody listening, I really want you to hear us. And while he's sharing this, but I want to encourage you guys is like, maybe your pastor did not go into the lobby saying hi to everybody. Maybe he did not give you a personal phone call or text message. And that's why you chose the church you did, or you left, or whatever the case might be. Either way, I want you guys to know is that what you are feeling, I am almost like 99% sure that your pastor thought about it and is feeling guilty for it in some type of way or fashion. But they also had to make the choice of what is like healthier for them. And they can't know every single person and every single person's story. Like you were making phone calls and you can only get through so many because people love that you called them, but yet they're keeping you on the phone for like an hour and a half telling you everything about their life, which is great if that's all you did, but you run a whole church and you're having to make decisions and you're having to, we're all running underneath you. So we need you focused and you have to study and you have like all these things. So I just think that I do want people to have the reality of like, your pastors, your leaders, maybe your bosses, whoever it is in your life, like I'm sure that they do want to do that. And I'm sure it's crossed their mind to the fact that they wanted to be more intentional. They wanted to do more, but depending on their circumstances in life, they just couldn't.
Yeah.
And is that okay? Yeah. Like at the end of the day, is God still calling you there? God is still calling you to serve at a church. God is still calling you to be under that leader's vision, authority, whatever the case might be. But if you don't get that personal phone call or you don't get that one-on-one time all the time or whatever, or even maybe just one time, like, I don't know, like, is that going to be okay?
Yeah.
Is that going to be okay? is that going to be enough? But like, seriously, like I've seen you go back and forth with this so much because I know how much you want to do, but sometimes you try to be all things to all people. And that's just not that you're not Jesus, you know?
I'm learning that. I think, we prayed that that we would be able to reach a city and reach the valley and make a difference. And I just think that I feel like we're very blessed to be a part of a church that is growing and that people are finding healing and hope and, you know, but I guess the thing I struggle with is the confession is like, I struggle with the guilt of it's growing too fast for me to actually know everybody.
Yeah. And
I feel it's like a hole when I meet people and I say, hey, what's your name? Or how long have you been coming to Lazy? And they're like, oh, since the summer.
Yeah.
And it's like February.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, am I a terrible person? Cause you know?
Yeah.
And, I guess that's part of the struggle of pastoring is like what you're saying, the freedom is I have to remind myself, I'm not Jesus. I'm just I'm a club promoter. I just try to get people in the club and like let them know it's an amazing club here.
Bro,
you know,
you could have been the best club promoter ever. Why didn't we do that?
I used to judge those people.
How do you do that before?
Yeah, I used to judge those people when we were in college. Like, but now I am. I think we're a club promoter because the club promoter at least knows I'm not the main attraction. I'm trying to point you to the main attraction. Right. So I guess that's the
tension though. Yeah. That's the tension, and understanding that's a confession in itself of like, you know, pastors, us having to deal with, we are not the main attraction. Yeah. It's Jesus. Yeah. And that's where it's
the people that Jesus uses inside this church. Like there's way more people that can know you and love on you and be consistent and intentional than I can. Yeah. But I just have to take off the pressure of, well, but I am the pastor. I'm the shepherd. I should love people. I should know people. But it's tough. I'm not gonna lie. It's tough for me. It's tough just to, what is that balance?
And it's tough for me. I don't know every woman. I don't get to hang out with every lady. I don't get to do all that all the time. And I think that, I think we can do this confessional thing, like maybe every couple episodes, team, we can do something like this of just like new confessions. Cause I think we would have confessions all day long of all the things that we've felt and gone through or we've never shared. Yeah. Of just like, but to truthfully starting this church, I think that, with the growth that we've had and God has blessed us with, I think that overall, I would say that we've just felt like, man, we want to care for every single person. We hope that every single person knows that we do love them, and being a part of Legacy is literally the people who are a part. But I also would say that there's many pastors and leaders out there who feel the same way, is that they are running amazing churches and they're spirit filled and biblically based. And maybe you've never gotten to have coffee with them or hang out with them, but pray for your pastors, pray for your leaders, and to just remembering, if you're OverChurched, just understanding and having the empathy that they really wish they could hang out with all of you guys. Yeah. Cause these pastors are not pastors because they didn't not care about people. Yeah. They really did care about people, started off that way. They really do. Like, you know, they really do care about people and they love people, and that's why they're in this. Yeah. Cause they love God's people. Yeah. So, anyways, I hope that you guys feel encouraged. We love y'all. I don't think that there's anything else more than we could say about confessionals, besides that there's many confessionals that we have, but we would love to share with you guys in a future podcast. But also, we just appreciate you guys just listening, being a part of this journey with us, and just liking, commenting, subscribing to our YouTube channel. We appreciate you guys. We have something exciting coming up soon. We have gear coming out that you guys can get and be a part of. That's not the gear. We have more gear.
That's right.
We have, yes. My bad. We have
we got OverChurched exclusive.
Yes. So
you still don't, you can still hate Legacy and still support OverChurched. So I'm
excited that we're going to have that. And then, so just remember, love, live, and lead like Jesus. And then we hope that you guys catch us on the next episode.